Now, they may dismiss what I have to say here now because, oh, it's only GB News, and, oh, the Policy Exchange think tank, it's just probably very right-wing. We don't have to listen to them. I think that's how a lot of those people think. But they're about to learn quite a stiff lesson, because the British public are no longer willing to be scared into silence with baseless claims of Islamophobia. We see through it. And they are about to find out that a lot of their lovey friends who tell them that they never watch GB News actually do. And they'll have seen this, and they'll probably think less of them, both personally and professionally, as a result. I'm joined now by the Senior Fellow at the Policy Exchange, Andrew Gilligan. Andrew, thank you very much for your time this evening, and thank you very much for the wonderful report that Policy Exchange have published. So just to give a flavour of that initial report there, you appear to have picked apart both the methodology and raised serious questions over the influence of the Centre for Media Monitoring. Would you like to expand on that?
Yes, I mean, they claim that their main job is tackling this, what they say is a tide of Islamophobic falsehoods in the British media about Muslims. Now, we went through the statistics they publish for the number of articles they've monitored and the number of successful complaints they've made, and it just doesn't come close to supporting their claims. They say that 10% of articles about Muslims are wrong and misrepresentations. Even on the most generous interpretation of the figures, the actual numbers, a tiny, tiny fraction of that. Not that the media never gets anything wrong, of course it does sometimes, but not very often. In the entire 7 years of their existence, they've only actually brought one complaint to IPSO, the press regulator, that's resulted in a newspaper being forced to make a correction. One in 7 years. And so that's that gives the lie to what they say they're about. What they're actually about is broadly what you said. It is trying to smear any critic of Islamism in particular. That's distinct from the Islamic faith. Islamism is a political doctrine. They try to smear any critic of Islamism as a racist, as an Islamophobe. And they do that on the basis of some pretty hopeless allegations.
So they also appear to conflate, actually, Islam and Islamism themselves in a way that you or I would be absolutely slammed for. You know, bracketing in things like genuine reporting of terrorist attacks as in some way talking about the religion of Islam is remarkable. Just explain to me quite briefly, Andrew, their level of influence, because do you fear that they are trying to influence the government's new Islamophobia definition? You know, how much influence have they had when it comes to the very higher ups here of the British media landscape?
They're definitely part of the campaign for a binding Islamophobia definition. And the government keeps saying, oh, no, it's not going to affect freedom of speech. It's not going to be legally binding. But that's absolutely not the agenda of people like CFMM and the others fighting for it. They literally say the definition is needed to restrict free speech about Muslims. That's a more or less exact quote of what they said. And in terms of the kind of media lobbies, as you call them, who get involved in their reports, look, I just think it's a kind of dereliction of duty. These people are supposed to be professional journalists. They really ought to have scrutinised, to have looked through the reports they're putting their names in the front of. And if they'd done that properly, if they'd done it subjected to any kind of journalistic scrutiny, they would see these things aren't worth the paper they're written on.
Just also as well, because there is a difference here. There is a difference between publishing something that calls somebody economically illiterate, for example, which is, you know, something that someone might find personally offensive, and really helping to label someone as an Islamophobe. I mean, the consequences of both of those two things are very different. Sorry about this, but just very quickly, because I'm very conscious to say that the report that you published there did not mention the report that they did about GB News. I understand that you are across that, though, and just briefly, what did you make of some of the things that were in that report about GB News?
We did mention DB News, actually. One of the things they do is they attack particular journalists. So they had a massive go at Andrew Norfolk, the late Andrew Norfolk, a journalist at the Times who did more than anyone else to expose the Rotherham grooming scandal. They said he was scapegoating Muslims. They kept attacking him. They made unfair attacks on him for things the paper had corrected, which weren't actually his doing. And they also had a big go at your Charlie Peters. again, the reporter who's doing the most with the grooming scandal at the moment, arguably responsible for the decision to have the case review and therefore for the full public inquiry that's about to start. They called him an activist journalist. They singled him out for constant criticism on Twitter, and that's the kind of thing they do. And the idea, of course, is to intimidate people, is to make their bosses doubt them, is to make them fearful of doing their jobs, and it's really not far off bullying and intimidation.
Andrew, thank you very much. Always tremendous to see you. Really appreciate you coming on. It's Andrew Gilligan there, who's the Senior Fellow at Policy Exchange. Don't worry if some of the people I've named are watching. We are going to be reading out a series of writes and replies very shortly. But